Welcome back to Case Closed, Anime Review, episode 183. Some of you are probably noticing I just noticed my last video. Apparently I wore the same color shirt, except it's not the same exact shirt. What I did the last episode of this review series, because that one it was basically a shirt featuring Deku. This was a Dalek shirt. Yep. I love Dalek, my favorite Doctor Who monster. Okay, for this episode, we're discussing the newest episode released this series, released just this past Saturday, which is episode 1071, known as the Kudo. I think it's okay. Let me try to get the name right. Yusaku Kudo's Detective Show, Part 1. Yes, Part 1 of 2. This is basically from the very same title arc. Basically adapting chapter 1058 and most of 1059. Now, I should point out though, this is the first canon story arc adapted for the anime released since October. Yeah, can you believe it's been I don't know, as of last weekend, it was 4 months. 3 months the last one. Now, as for why in the world they waited so long to adapt this one, I have no idea. It's an arc that was originally released a little over 2 years ago. Yep, so, I should point out, most of this episode is pretty much mostly intact from the original source material, except the last 5 minutes is mostly a lot of changes. So we start off with Conan's father, where he is basically coming out of the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department, which is the same building I also saw in Kamakura. Yep, the same exact building. He comes out, does a brief interview, talking about the fact that he cleared the Kaido Kid of false theft charges, and also the fact that he's, taking part in the current big thing, the Lock murder mysteries, which of course he has solved them. And he's going to name the culprit on a TV special airing that following weekend. And it's not, and of course the guy reported, apparently he knew nothing about it, and oh, you're from a different network, okay. And of course he drives up in the green taxi. Yes, this series loves seeing green taxis. Yes, it's a popular thing in this series. I haven't seen one in a while though, but interesting to see it. And then meanwhile though, 3 days later, yes, this is mostly progressing. Now, once they get to the Kudo house, not long after that, it basically starts to change. Yes. So, we have Conan's beautiful mother. Yes, his mom. Oh, yes. Gotta love this woman. Why, you might ask? Well, here's kind of thing. This woman is 38 years old. Yeah, this is Yukio. Yeah, great to see her in this particular episode. Oh yeah, definitely. Love the fact they featured her. Yep. Oh yeah, they also had a whole thing about getting a copy of his novel. I forgot to mention that here. So, Conan basically talks to his mom, and of course, she reveals that, oh yeah, that about the whole case, the fact that also that Conan's father has gotten sick due to food poisoning. Yes, seriously, food poisoning. Now, why in the world this is like this? Well, they ate some Italian food, and it was pretty bad for them, so he's basically really sick. So, basically her plan is to have Conan use the voice changer and her disguise as her awesome husband. And then, of course, they go back to the Kudo house, and of course, they do mention where Aki is. Apparently, he's involved in the FBI business. That's, okay, that is mostly sort of a very next story arc, the FBI serial murder case, which I love this particular case, because it's the first case, it's the only case. It was full of excitement. The fact it featured return of the black organization. It felt like basically back to form. This is basically like the exciting part of Case Closed. The Black Organization. Love seeing these guys. Yeah, first time in a while they've been active in the series. My God, they took their sweet time getting back involved with the series. Yes. Which, in the case of the anime, they have been involved with it since June of last year. That was the last time officially they ever actually have a case featuring them per se. And before that was the case back in 2019. Which, fun fact, that was actually the most recent episode I caught up with when I was binge watching the anime. It took me a freaking long time to get through this anime originally. 6 months. I'll talk more about that when I get to episode 200, which might be a little while before I get to it. So, basically, Conan is being debriefed about the case. The fact about all 3 victims. Okay. The fact they're all locked rooms. The first one is a woman who apparently was killed in her bathroom with stuff beside her. And then we have a guy who is a NEET is what some people might describe him as anime. Despite he's a part-timer, he prefers to live off his father's money. Yep, lives off his father's money. And then pretty much so he gets killed. Apparently his body is found in the entryway of his apartment. Though apparently they don't know how big the apartment is. Apparently, because it's Japan. The apartments are tiny there. I'm not going to poke fun at it, just how Japan is. But in the case of the next one, it's a baker. Now, here's the thing. The first murder mentioned that they happened about 20 days prior to present day. The second one happened 10 days later. And then the third one happened the next day. That's interesting. Yeah, next one's 10 days. Why the heck would they wait 10 days for the next murder to happen? That just doesn't make any sense. The third one was a baker. Yes, a baker who was killed in a house in Baka City. They don't say it was his house per se. And apparently they described the kitchen like a restaurant kitchen. Okay. Now, in case you're curious though, I do work in a restaurant kitchen. Mostly a fast food one. And you might be thinking, does the one I work in look like the way this one does? I think from what I can tell, this is pretty accurate to a sit-down restaurant per se, but not to a one I work at. One I work at is completely different. Plus, it's smaller. Yeah, it's a much smaller kitchen. Because it's McDonald's. It's fast food. What do you expect? So, after they finish the briefing, and then, of course, she basically, of course, she agrees to put the makeup on. And, of course, Conan gets a knock at the door oh, crap. Then of course, basically, she, and then goes 10 minutes before the reporters arrive. And then his mom gets sick, too. And she's like, well, we're married, so of course I got sick. Then, of course, oh, crap, we need to call off the whole thing. Conan answers the door. By the way, this actually is the end of chapter 1050 when he answers the door. And that's halfway through the episode. Yeah, the first half is all 1058, which very little change. 1059 basically is where the changes happen. Where, yeah, here's the thing. We have Kudo show up at the door. Now, this is not him. It's implied with the kind of kid, but it really isn't. I know who it is under the mask, but I'm not going to spoil it until we get to the one at weekend. So, basically, this is Kyle Kid's hey, this is a thank you for clearing my name. Okay, perfectly fine. And, of course, basically, comes inside. And, of course, doesn't debrief him. In the manga, he does. In the study, in the anime, they change it over the next episode. So, he comes in, basically, of course, he agrees. It kind of briefs him a little bit. Then, of course, reporters show up. They also have it where he was apparently interviewed the day prior. And, of course, he starts hitting on, him, Kyle as Conan's father, decides hitting on this beautiful reporter. Now, here's the thing. This novelist is a happily married man with a teenage son who looks like a freaking child because of a drug that he was given back in the pilot episode of the series back in 1995. Which, by the way, the anime is still going. And this anime has been going on for almost 30 years. Yeah, almost 30 years this anime has been going on. I'm only reviewing it for like 3 years now, reviewing this anime. I'll get to more of that later. So, actually, like 4 years this year. Yeah, 4 years. So, Tana, of course, he stomps his foot. And then, of course, we'll set the study up. And then, she's like, oh, you look familiar. Oh, I'm Conan, I'm the kid killer. Of course, he's helping out with the case. Then, of course, we actually have him go into a different room. Which, by the way, this room is not seen in the manga. It's like a home theater room. It's like a home theater seating room. Now, this room is not seen in the manga. In the manga, basically, the Kaido Kid is debriefed about this case in the study. In the anime, it is, done in a different room. Now, if you're a longtime viewer of the series, seeing this study is great. It was seen several times early on in the series. Then later on, it got sparse appearances. This is also by far the first time in terms of the anime, the first time the study has been seen, in a long time. Yep. And probably also the first time we actually have more than, I think in most we've actually in this room is mostly about 4 or 5 people. This looks like about 10 to 12 people. This is probably, at this point in terms of the anime, the highest number of people in this study. Now, in this study, there's a whole bunch of books. Now, presumably, Conan's father wrote a lot of them. Now, according to Yuriko, the whole special came about because the producer of it was also the same person who was the first person to adapt, one of his books for TV. And basically couldn't turn him down because somebody he knows. Okay, perfectly fine. But this is a damn good episode. This is something I have been wanting to see for a long time. A really interesting case. Because a lot of the canon cases, some of them tend to be okay, per se. The ones, in the case of the ones that aired just last year, per se. Mm-hmm. The Koga Dilemma, that's okay. Mostly it's just a small, dragged out story. So get some good stuff there with that one. The Hotel Farm, that was good, basic. I also occasionally like the fact that some of these cases do get followed up with in a later case. Though, in the case of one case recent, I think it was one from last year, I think it was. Let's see, it was Antique Fossil, which was about a couple years ago, a little over a year ago. That was a follow-up to a case that came out a long time ago, that one was. My gosh, it was long time ago. Mm-hmm. You asked for why in the world they decided to follow up with something that happened a little over a decade ago. Who knows? But still enjoy this episode, and I can't wait to discuss the very next episode, which will air on Saturday. So yeah, that's it, particular review. Next up, I was hoping to get to it tonight, but it's getting kind of late right now. I'll probably just go ahead and do my second comic corner I'm going to do. Yeah, one more. I'm going to do that, and I'll probably call it a night. I'll probably get a chance to do this tomorrow. So now I'm down to 2 anime left. Yep, which I should be able to get this stuff done by Saturday. No problem. Okay, next video. Bye.